All right, better late than never. Time to do a deck tech of the Prism deck that I played for the Pro Tour. So, yeah, I brought Prism to the Pro Tour. I got top 64. I was 50 something place. I don't actually remember what number it was. Um, and here is the deck list that I played. Cards on the side are the ones that I predominantly brought in and out for the different matchups. The obvious fatigue package here basically swapped with the auras that are in the deck because, I don't want the zero block cards in versus chain. So let me just go over a couple things real quick. So, first of all, why did I play Prism? I did think that she was actually a pretty decent pick into the meta, but I am also a Prism 1 trick. I thought that my time was better spent just playing the deck that I know rather than trying to learn something new in a short amount of time. And to be honest, uh, I didn't really like my other choices. Basically, the way that I saw the meta looking day of was I thought there's going to be a lot of Starvo because I thought Starvo was still very good. I thought there's going to be a lot of Chain because Chain seemed to be the strongest deck, uh, close to Starvo in power level, and they can kind of go toe to toe. And the meta basically being either you're playing Chain, you're playing Starvo, or you're playing a deck that beats Chain or Starvo, or you're playing a deck that beats decks that beat Chain or Starvo. The meta basically did shape out to be that. From what I could tell, it was a lot of Chain, a lot of Starvo. There was a good amount of Prism there, actually a bit more Prism than I was expecting. Obviously, there was Kano's decks that beat Chain and Starvo. There's a handful of ice decks that I saw here and there. So the meta basically shaped up to what I was thinking. So I figured I was either going to be playing Prism, Chain, or Starvo. I didn't think that with that open of a field that it was necessarily smart bringing something like Ice or Kano, since I'm really just hoping that I hit the correct decks in Swiss. And with that many rounds, that might be difficult, and that open of a field of that many people. So I didn't think that was too smart, and I didn't really like the play pattern of either Chain or Starvo. I didn't like the mirror match for Chain. I There's a lot of things I didn't like about those decks. I want to have agency over my game plan and what I'm doing, and I felt like Prism gave me the most control over what I am doing and being able to make choices. I didn't want to just pull the slot machine and hope I get there. I didn't think that was a good plan. I didn't let me use any skill expression, if you know what I mean. Um, and that being said, I did face what I expected in Swiss. I went 9 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. I faced pretty much exclusively Chain, Starvo, Prism. I had, I think, only one deck that wasn't that, which was an Ice Lexi. And my losses was 2 mirrors and 2 chains, and my draw was to Chain. The chain I drew to was on stream. If you guys watch that, that was really tragic. Found the War Tune to kill his Urser the second they called time, and if I had literally shown him that a few seconds sooner, he would have just conceded on the spot. And he even asked if he could concede to the judge because it did not benefit either of us to draw. We both knew that a draw meant neither of us could make top 32 anymore. So that just killed that dream right there for both of us. So that was really unfortunate. Really nice guy though. Um, my other chain losses, one was to Joe, and um, I think I might have won that if I was taking the game a bit more seriously. I have a hard time playing against friends because I start getting a little too jovial with my friends and not taking the game as seriously as I should. And like gave him a take back on something, and I just shouldn't have done that. We're at the Pro Tour, should be a bit more serious about it. And then my other one was to a chain who was playing a crazy high blood debt. He must have been on over 50% blood debt. He was on like every pitch of Riftbind, Howl, Ghostly Visit, Unhallowed Rites, and then he had like extra copies of Seeping Shadows and Howl from Beyond, and I was just like, what is this blood debt count? He ended up eclipsing me on Shackle 5 because he flipped over so many cards. I was like, must be nice to be this lucky where you just flip over this much stuff and not die to your own deck. I could not believe he was able to actually cast everything that he was banishing. Um, there was nothing I could have really done about that. He just, flipped over all blood debt, drew hands of all blues. I can't do anything about that. Um, and then my two Prism losses. I should have probably been playing Raging Onslaughts in hindsight. I did not expect as much Prism as there was there, and every single Prism I faced was packing a lot of hate for the mirror. So I was at a disadvantage with my build for the mirror. I knew that going in, which was a little unfortunate. I got a little RNG'd out for those games. Like one of them, he had all the good auras in the first cycle of the deck, like Haze Bendings and Mercifuls and stuff like that, and I was just playing things like Passing Mirage and Pierce Realities, things that don't like matter as much in the mirror. And then my Prismatics lined up really poorly into his stuff, and then his Prismatics lined up very good into what I had, and that happened in both my games that I lost in the mirror. Did learn a couple interesting tricks in the mirror though, of just some interesting cards that I did not think about bringing in the mirror, such as Arclight. Did not help though that I had cards in the deck for the mirror that should not be in the deck at all for the mirror, because I did not have enough room to take out cards, because I was really trying to target Chain and Starvo. It was a little unfortunate. I did not face as many Starvos as I was hoping. I think I only ended up facing like 3 or 4 Starvos. It was like all Chain and Prism that I faced. No, that was very unfortunate. It is what it is. I had a lot of variants come up, and I heard a lot of other people talking about that too, where they were just getting variants instead of games. And that was definitely the case of my weekend too. It was just a lot of just I either drew bad or drew the wrong parts of my deck, and on such a clock in some of these matchups where like that you can't have that happen. That was my other chain game that I lost. My opening hand was 4 blue auras, or no, 3 blue auras, and then my second hand was 3 other blue auras. So I ended up getting punched in the face for like 10 damage on the first 2 rounds of the game, and now I have a graveyard full of blue auras, which I don't want versus Chain because it turns on their inverts. And then both of the games that I lost to Chain, I had 1 copy of Unmovable in the deck because I didn't have another card to take out, and both of the times it ended up where I drew the Unmovable and could not find a blue for 3 rounds to play the Unmovable, and that cost me the game of just I had to pitch weird into it. Like there's one time where I had to pitch a yellow aura and a Sigil of Solace to play the Unmovable on a 5 block or lose that turn, which then meant I lost the game because it was I needed to more than just not lose this turn, because I'm still losing this game now because I had to spend 3 cards to stop 5 damage just to live another turn, because we're only on Shackle like 6. It'd be like that. I really didn't enjoy that meta very much. Chain and Starvo are just we're just gonna turn all these things into coin flips and variance games, and I don't enjoy that. I super don't enjoy playing Fatigue. It's very boring. Just sitting there drawing your hand, you're like, yep, that blocks. I'll wait. Oh, you did something, block. Oh, you did something, block. And not actually getting to play the game, just watching your opponent play the game. It's incredibly boring. I ended up skipping most of the ProQuest season because of that. I just really didn't want to face Chain, and I know that's a popular deck in my area, so I just was like, I'm good. I've faced enough Chains this year. I'll take the season off. I only ended up going to 1 ProQuest because of that. Which weirdly enough, there was barely any Chain. It seemed like a lot of people were jumping off Chain and Starvo right at the end just because they knew it was hitting Living Legend, so I guess they got rid of their cards. A lot of Briar in my area, which was weird. I judged my ProQuest at Great Stories and then went to another one. And at my my ProQuest, it was half Briar, and the other one, um, I don't know how many Briars were there, but there was a lot. I ended up facing, I think, 4 Briars that day, and a chain, and 2 Prisms. So it was like, oh, what is this? There wasn't a single Starvo in the room at either ProQuest. Whatever. Um, Anything else I wanted to talk about before talking about changes to the deck? Nope. I think that's about it. So you see that I have a package in here for fatiguing out Chain. I went with a yellow Impenetrable Beliefs because these were coming in some other matchups that I didn't actually want them in. And I found that when I was playing this card, sometimes... So, like, when I draw it, it needs to be my pitch for the round. So, it's not a card that I want to keep for any reason. Obviously, it doesn't do anything against anything else. Um, and in every other matchup, other than Chain, I actually value yellow more than blue a lot of the time, unless I'm playing an Aura. So, if I draw, say, an Impenetrable Belief and a random Herald, well, if the Herald is my yellow, I don't really want to pitch the Herald to play the Impenetrable. But if the Impenetrable is a blue, I don't get Go again. So it just led to, like, awkward hands where, like, I really want to keep this so I can at least just block with everything but this and then pitch this to make a shield and push all my stuff with Go again. I did not find it ever come up that this was not a blue versus Chain. I ended up also last minute switching my sideboard plan for Chain where I was bringing in Crown instead, and that was very good. Basically, in the early turns versus Chain, they'll get in some chip damage with Rosetta and Rune Chance and stuff. It let me weaponize my blues to still stop 3 damage even though they're not 3 blocks like my blue auras. And it's very important to never block with these or play them so that way I don't turn on their inverts. Because I'll end up, say, blocking for 2 with this in the early game, but then they'll shoot me for 2 later on, so it ended up not actually stopping any damage. So it lets me go pitch a blue, prevent an arcane with Crown, prevent an arcane with No Rune Gloves, and then block 1 with my footsteps, meaning I only actually leak 1 damage on the Rosetta. Stopping the early leak was very important versus Chain, so I could maintain like a 30 plus life total into their late shackles where they actually get real damage into me. I think the only change I really would have made to the deck was maybe cutting the Skullcap for another unmovable. I ended up keeping Skullcap in the deck for Starvo because I felt like I needed that extra little bit of safety versus them just in case they high roll me, which does happen. One of my Starvos I faced that day fused almost every single turn of the game with good fuse cards, and I don't think it ended up mattering in that particular game that I had Skullcap, but in a lot of those games it does where, I didn't find another unmovable, so having the Skullcap plus Ironhide Gauntlets to stop like a big Crippling Crush or something is relevant, though maybe less relevant now that it seemed like a lot of Starvos were moving away from Crippling Crush, especially against Prism where they'll board that out, as it's not really important having an on-hit like that versus Prism. They know that they're never going to get the hit trigger against me, so why bother playing a card like that? Better to just play a 3 for 7 instead. Other than that, I liked the list. I liked how it performed. I needed variance to be a little bit more on my side. Um, I would have considered, in hindsight, maybe making Herald of Judgment, Herald of Protection yellow instead. I actually found that Protection was a bit better against Chain than Judgment because the turns that I get to keep a hand and actually attack them with a Herald are in the early rounds of the game, and attacking with a Herald of Judgment against them in those rounds of the game is completely irrelevant. They go, whatever, take it. Oh no, I don't get to play my 1 card in Banish. But the 1 Spectral Shield actually was relevant. The Herald of Protection, the damage doesn't matter. It just said on hit gain 1 life. And where I'm trying to fatigue them, that's relevant. Gaining 1 life, pretty good. So I think in hindsight, maybe I would have swapped that over, and then it has more play into other decks, such as the Mirror. That might have been helpful in my Mirrors. Against any other racing decks, it's typically very good having protection, since like a yellow protection is worth about 8, since it's 6 damage, plus I make a shield, So the shield in itself is worth 2 since it does 1 and saves me 1. And if it sticks around, it's worth even more. So, finding a card that's worth 8, pretty valuable when you're trying to race with your opponent. Notably, I was not playing Red War Tune. That is a card I typically really like to play in the deck. I ended up cutting it since I felt like, again, I'm predominantly going to be seeing Starvos and Chains, and neither of those are decks that I really care about having Red War Tune against. I'm not trying to race Chain, so that's not relevant. It is only relevant that it is a card that can kill an Ursa at the end of the game, but I, only need so many of those. And again, Starvo was a card I typically sideboarded out because the damage was not very relevant. Um, Maybe I should have been playing it versus Starvo for that particular room because originally when I came to that conclusion, it was in the world where Awakening existed, and I don't want them to go lower than me to get a chance to play that card. But I still think that I didn't really care about the damage. The board presence mattered more. I don't care about getting 7 damage in on a Starvo. It's not relevant. I'm winning on board, not based on life. Um, it never hurt me that I didn't have the extra immovable versus Starvo. Um, the only change I'm making to the deck of cutting the skull cap for the immovable really would just be to make sideboarding for other matchups more comfy. Because I did not lose to a single Starvo. That was not an issue. If anything, I might have been able to cut cards for Starvo for other matchups. Something that I maybe should spend some time thinking on, but not too much because, like, again, this meta is completely irrelevant now. Both of these decks are living legends, so it's not like I have to worry about these ever again. Overall, great weekend. Had a great time. Met a lot of people. If you came to say hi to me, I really appreciate it. It was nice just getting to say hi to everyone. Meeting up with people from online, other content people, and just getting to spend time with my boys. The shrewdness, um, good food, good times. And I'm looking forward to doing this again. I'm going to be trying to go to France. Waiting on stuff on my passport for that, so fingers crossed. I already got my invite locked in because I just play a lot, so I was pretty high up on XP. So if you guys are going to that and I end up going, feel free to say hi. Looking forward to going to that. I am super excited for Uprising and the fact that it is a partial draft pro tour because draft is one of my main formats in Magic and stuff. So it's gonna be nice to actually be able to draft again because I did not have a great draft experience during Aria. I did not like that set very much. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about the deck, please let me know. Any just general questions for me or any content that you guys would like to see out of me, please let me know. And make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching.